Good afternoon, everyone. It's Alan Murabayashi from PhotoShelter with another PhotoShelter webinar. We have a great one for you today with a really knowledgeable source. But before we get started, a few housekeeping notes. Over on the right of your screen, you should see the GoToWebinar control panel. And from that control panel, you can ask us questions as we go along. We'll do our best to integrate those into the conversation and answer some of those offline. We also have, for those of you on Twitter, a couple hashtags and ats that you should know about. At PhotoShelter, you can follow us for a lot of photo-related stuff. And today's hashtag is hashtag PS Webinar. So if you have a quote or a comment or a question that you particularly want to get out there, use the hashtag PS Webinar. Our guest is Rosh Sillars from roshsillars.com. He's at Rosh Sillars on Twitter as well. So follow Rosh. He's got a ton of great stuff. He's got a wonderful podcast that you can subscribe to and download through iTunes and some other different channels for podcasts. And with that, Rosh, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Alan.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your photography and how you got into this whole social media and marketing thing?
Well, I've always been involved with photography. My degree is in photography, and I like to kind of put that out there immediately because when I talk to groups and when I travel and I speak to organizations, a lot of times I spend a lot of my time talking to photographers, and I always have a few people in the front row, arms folded, looking at me, yeah, all this social media stuff, but you don't understand our plight. You're not a photographer. and I say, yes, I am, and I know your plight, and I know what you're dealing with, but for me, my whole life, it's been marketing and media and photography, and I've always blended them together, always worked with them my entire life. I've been an internet geek my whole life. I mean, I like to prove that by saying, hey, I have Rosh.com. I mean, so it's what I do.
That's pretty impressive.
Thank you. So I'm, I've been very involved online for a long time. I love photography. I have three areas of special focus in terms of my photography these days. I'm more corporate, although I did start off in photojournalism. I do a lot of corporate people, I do a lot of food work, and I do a lot of interior work. And I'm pretty busy, and it's good. And I can really put a lot of the credit right on social media and digital marketing for exactly the reason why I'm busy.
Probably one of the best developments for photographers that sort of counteracts the rise of micro stock, et cetera, that's kind of decimated the industry is social media. So I think you're right in that regard.
And the ability to connect with more people, because today it's a little harder for a lot of photographers to make a living in your local community, but it allows us to stretch out, and even if we don't become a national photographer, we can become a regional photographer, or we can find the people that enjoy or appreciate our work in multiple cities around us a little bit easier than we could before.
It seems like no matter what industry you're in, no matter what occupation you have, it kind of always comes down to marketing, because you could be the greatest musician or the greatest photographer, greatest artist, but if nobody knows who you are and nobody knows how to engage you, you're just stuck with bragging rights and not with much of a business.
Oh, absolutely. You could, if you're in your basement with the best portfolio in the world and no one knows about you, you do have a problem. And it is very common for photographers. A lot of photographers get into the business, they don't want to deal with business. And I think a lot of photographers forget, if you're trying to make money with photography, you're in business. And you need to understand the basics of business.
Yeah.
And a lot of that involves marketing, and social media is a big part of it.
What kind of photographs are you taking nowadays?
A lot of, as we were talking about before we went on, I was photographing robots. We have a lot of industrial stuff around Detroit. But nationally and internationally, I probably do more food on that level, and then a lot of maybe regionally corporate portraiture. I do maybe a little bit of media. I don't do as much media as I used to, but I have a few good accounts that allows me to get into the boardrooms in offices of really well-known CEOs and well-known politicians, which helps keep my portfolio going. So I do enjoy that. I do enjoy the media side of it, but again, I kind of have a dual career going with the marketing side. So I I have to keep a good balance. So I don't do as much media as I used to.
There seems to be such a rise of people taking photos of their food. I mean, you obviously see
Oh
this a lot
yes,
on
it's everybody's
Instagram.
favorite.
Have
You
you
know,
felt threatened at all with that side of the business because people are just
no,
no.
no, not at all. I mean, because the here's the thing. Generally, you light food from the back, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
everybody's camera, flashes on the front. So, if you're
Right.
looking
Right.
for that style that looks good, I'm not so concerned. But hey, people like to shoot the things they love, and they photograph selfies, they photograph their food, and well, the third one, well, it's not that kind of show. But that those are the three things people like to photograph, and we're always going to have to deal with that.
Yeah, I hear what you mean. Some nice interior work here. So I was, in preparation for this webinar, I was kind of just surfing around the internet, and I came across this little headline of The Onion, which, as most people know, is kind of a satirical newspaper. And I just thought that this headline, "Guy with 10,000 tweets and 15 followers about ready to hang it up." And it so perfectly encapsulated, I think, the frustration that a lot of us have with social media, which is it seems like you spend so much time grinding your wheels for very, very little return on investment. And I want to get your thoughts on that.
Well, you can do that. That can happen. There are a few ways you can look at it. I deal with companies and people all the time who just say, hey, we want to be on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and all this, and we want to be there. Can you just post something for us every day? And I pause, and I say, okay, I can do that, but that's not going to do you any good, because just posting something to a Facebook page or a Twitter feed is not social media. That's posting something. That's just one-way advertising. Social media is social, and you develop relationships. It's like going to a networking event, and you've seen that person who goes in with a deck of cards and just passes them out to everyone and then runs out the door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not networking. That's passing out a bunch of cards, which nobody really, after 5 minutes doesn't even remember who you are, doesn't really care, and probably throws it in the garbage at the end of the event, because there was no relationship there. So instead of trying to pass out a card to all 50 people at the event, spend time with 2 or 3, maybe 4, and make a connection with 1 or 2 that could actually turn into business. And if you think of it that way and start building relationships, so instead of a room of 50 people in which you do that, in which maybe out of those 50 people, 45 of them could never use your service. It's the same thing online. So you have to take time. You have to, of course, qualify people, develop relationships. Someone's not going to refer you or hire you unless there's a relationship there. And that takes time. So it's no different online or off, and you have to have that mentality. So instead of 50 people, you have the world, which I take the world.
Yeah. Yeah. You see some stories about photographers or celebrities who have, 1 million followers on one platform or the other, whether it's Instagram or Facebook or Twitter. Those people seem to be kind of outliers. And it doesn't seem like that is a good example for the average photographer who might have 1,000 or 10,000 followers. So is it, I guess it's not really about quantity per se, although obviously you always want to be building, but also, as you said, kind of qualifying your audience.
Yeah, it is quality, and people hate it when I say that, but it's true. It is quality, but there's nothing wrong with a lot of quality. So don't forget that. Someone with 10,000 really high quality or high percentage of valuable people, that's great. And so it is a balance. You have to just kind of figure out, what are your goals? What do you want out of social media? And so once you develop that, too many people get into social media and again just start doing stuff, and without a plan and understanding why you're connecting with people, what kind of people you're looking for, and developing a plan around it, you're probably not going to get anything out of it. And if you think, it's amazing how many times I've had people come up to us, within our company and say, okay, we have an event next month. Let's use social media. Okay, how many people do you have following you? Well, we have about 50, but we want to make a big splash. How about Facebook? Well, we just opened it last week. So it's not a channel in which you're going to do anything. If you think you're going to need that following, you need to develop it well ahead of time. And so sometimes people come in too late, and so they say, okay, we have a big event. We only, we used all of our social media and we got nothing. That's because no one was following you. And chances are half of them were robots because you weren't doing anything anyway to entice quality people.
So back in the day, we had Friendster, and then it was MySpace, and then it was Facebook, and then we saw Instagram and Snapchat, and it seems like a new social media platform pops up every 18 months and becomes dominant in some form or fashion, which I think leads a lot of people to question whether investment in a single platform is a worthwhile investment. And at the rate that all of this stuff changes in technology in general, I guess I want to ask you, is social media still relevant 10 years into it?
Sure. Well, let's take it back, and I'm going to suggest that it's older than that. When was the web not social?
Yeah,
it's always been social.
Yeah.
The only thing that's improved are the platforms. I mean, before that, we had bulletin boards, which were social. And then we had other platforms. We got into AOL, and we kept building, just like then getting into, as you said, Friendster, and then each platform developing. So it's going to continue to develop and change. We are social creatures. We want to connect, and we have the technology to continue to connect. Will we always connect the same way we do, like Facebook does now, or Twitter? Maybe, maybe not. An interesting tell is the fact that Facebook just bought Oculus just a day or two ago.
Yeah.
That's where's that going to go? I mean, we could really be in a 3D world in a number of years where that's going to be our social interaction. I mean, obviously there are Second Life and things like that are out there that have been out there, but maybe it'll get better. It'll become more practical. Who knows what platform it will be, but it's always been social. So we kind of have to look at, okay, what's the technology we have? Don't worry about that it's going to change, because it's going to change. But what do we have now? What are our goals? Who do we want to meet? Who can help us? And decide on the platforms. And sometimes it takes a little testing. Maybe you'll go on Twitter and find Twitter is not going to work for you. But Twitter, for me personally, it made my career. So, it really is about testing, trying, figure out where the people are that you want to be in touch with, and then actually developing relationships, just like we used that networking example earlier.
So in the same way that at the top of the broadcast we said that marketing is so crucial to the success of your photography business or any business in general, do you think that people that have sort of resisted social media or have phobias about social media, to a certain extent, they have to kind of suck it up and just say, this is now a channel for marketing. You don't necessarily have to become expert in it, but you do have to have a fluency in it to be relevant today?
I'll say this, social media may not be right for everyone. But I think personally, if your business is about people and connecting with people, I think people have made my business and have helped me grow my business, and my relationships and networks have helped grow my business. I think that's important. But some people like to do direct mail, and it works well for them. Some people like email marketing. That works well for them. That's fine. But I do think social media is a really good way to go about it. Now, obviously, you have a number of ways you can go about it. Social media, in quotes, is free versus other marketing methods which cost. And so you have a choice, time or money. Which do you want to use? Do you want to buy your way into people's lives, or do you want to earn it through social interaction? Again, the same way you would either go to a networking event at the local Chamber of Commerce and shake hands, or buy an ad on their website, brochure, or in the local trade magazine. You have choices to make. And if you're really awkward and not feeling so social and don't know what to say, then maybe it's not right for you. But I would suggest it is a strong channel. There's probably a channel out there that will work for you, a platform that will work for you, and that will earn you some kind of credibility. It's also important, another thing that has really made my career, or made it easy for me to be found, again, of course, is search engine optimization. And social media is becoming more and more relevant in search engine optimization. You need to be found. and people use search engines to find products and services. So, that connection becoming more important. Obviously, if SEO is important to you, then social media it's a given. You have to be a part of it because Google wants the experts, and Google uses that as part of their algorithm.
So speaking of kind of getting out there in all the different places, I guess maybe in homage to the relaunch of Cosmos, you're all about the social solar system.
Yeah, I like to use that as a kind of a foundation to help develop your plan, because as I was saying before, you really need a plan. You need to be thinking about this, and so I like to demonstrate this with the solar system. In the center is your website, and nearby circling is your blog. And in your website, that's where you convert. That's where you ask for the sale. And in your social solar system, the rest of it is really just about making those connections and providing good quality content. And a lot of that good quality content you provide in what I call the inner planets, which are like YouTube and Flickr or Instagram. These are places where you're mostly sharing quality content, videos and photos, or sometimes audio. And then you have your outer planets. And those outer planets, that's really where you engage. That's where you connect. That's your Twitter and Facebook. And maybe Pinterest. It depends. You can put it at a different point depending on the type of site and how you approach it. Or LinkedIn even can be an outer planet. And what you do is you connect with people, you engage with people, and then you kind of push them in. You give them opportunities, not continuously pounding them, but you give them opportunities. Say, hey, here's something that's relevant, and you send them to YouTube or to a blog post that's related to a conversation, or just sharing your latest blog post with your community, which hopefully, as you're driving them in further and further, eventually they end up on your website, which is your sun. And that's where you will ask for the sale. And it's important to ask for the sale. If you're not asking for the sale, you're losing out on opportunities. So kind of build that solar system. How many planets? Well, you can start off with your sun and maybe a blog. I think a blog is still very important. And then maybe just one inner planet and one outer planet. Maybe YouTube and Facebook. Work on that, develop that, and as you get that down and get the system down, you can add other planets to your solar system, and again, with the goal of driving people in to your website to convert.
Now, you and a lot of other experts in this area, they always talk about you need a plan. But, if you're an individual business owner, photographer, etc., what exactly does that even mean? Am I supposed to go to my word processor and like type out a calendar?
Well, I actually create a little solar system, but yes, a calendar is a great way to go about it, because if you have a theme each month, we do this for individuals as well as companies all the time, because you don't want to reinvent the wheel every month. So if you have a plan, this month we're going to talk about this, I'm going to write about this, and then next month I'm going to talk about this, versus trying to figure out what I'm going to do. But developing a plan, you need to be thinking, okay, what am I going to use this social media for? Mm-hmm. Am I using it to find more customers? Am I using it for just pure networking? Am I using it for just finding great cutting-edge information? I mean, just remember, it wasn't that long ago where the latest camera came out. We had to wait a few months until the magazines came out to show us everything about the camera. Now we get the press release as it comes out on Twitter, and we know everything about the new cameras immediately.
Right.
So it's good quality information for the industry. So you could just be absorbing the information that is out there. Are you using it for customer service? I mean, there's so many different ways you can apply it. Is it a distribution channel for your work? Just getting the work out there so you're better known in a specific niche and developing your reputation. So there's a lot of ways you can go about it. So that's part of your plan. You need to really think about that before you go, versus just being, yes, I do it all. You really should focus down. And then down to the point of, what are you going to do with those leads? What do these Facebook followers mean to you? Mm-hmm. Are you hoping to convert them? Are you hoping to, get their email eventually, so you can maybe do an email marketing campaign? What are these people there for? And you really need to decide what happens when you get a new follower, or a new follower that you know the name, or you know that person, or it's somebody in the industry that you are targeting. What is your next step?
Hmm.
Do you make note of them? Do you tag them in some way and say, I'm going to start following up or engaging this specific person? What's the criteria? Maybe you are on Twitter and you have thousands of followers. Well, you don't really want to, engage every single one the same. You need to focus. You can't engage 1,000, 2,000 people. So what is the criteria for those people that are, that are on your radar to engage, and what you're going to do with them, and what is your goal?
So you talk about a strategy of having the website be kind of the center of your solar system, and some of the inner planets, maybe the blog, the Facebook page, the Instagram account. How much coordination do you recommend between these different planets in terms of, let's say my theme this month is spring. Does every channel have to be talking about that in the same way, or am I just more concerned about brand consistency than I am about content consistency?
Brand consistency would be my number one, of course. But I'm not a fan of automation and just sending everything to every place. Now, I'm not saying you can't set stuff up. I use Hootsuite all the time, because what I'll often do is I'll set maybe 3 or 4 articles up the night before, because I'm going through my Feedly account and I'm going through and seeing what articles I like. Say, oh, that's interesting, I want to share that. But I don't want to share them all right now, so I'm going to spread them out through the day. But if you do that, you definitely need to be there. So I'll make sure that I know that I have a couple articles in the morning, a couple in the afternoon, and I want to get in there. And if somebody has a comment, that I can connect with them. Again, social media. So it's just automating, sharing. What my biggest pet peeve is? My biggest pet peeve is when I follow somebody on Twitter, and they say, "Oh, if you really want to connect with me, follow me on Facebook." I hate that. I mean, if you're going to be on Twitter, be on Twitter. If you're on Facebook, don't tell people to go to Twitter. Or, if you're on Instagram, go somewhere. I really dislike that. If you're going to be there and connect with people, people are connecting with you on Twitter because they want to connect with you on Twitter, not over on Facebook.
You
I
are
understand why
listening.
people
You are
do it,
listening.
but
Yeah.
good.
You're listening to Rosh Sillars. We're talking about social media. He did mention a product called Hootsuite, Hoot Suite, Suite, which is a service that allows you to post to multiple social media channels and schedule them. So if you are dealing with multiple channels and you're one person or you're a small staff, that's not a bad tool to have.
There are a number of them out there too. So it's use the one that works for you.
Yeah. So Facebook, man, I got to tell you, we at PhotoShelter, we have a Facebook page that has historically been very successful for us. But Facebook seems to keep changing the algorithm that determines how many people see your posts. So I think, about 2 years ago, we had one post that reached over 1 million people, and now it's a stretch to get posts that go out to 10,000 people. So the question is Facebook still worthwhile when they keep changing the ground underneath us?
That's a great question. It is really rather unfortunate what they're doing. I am a fan of actually purchasing, promoted posts and using the ad system. I think I've had great success with it, but at the same time, I think it really is unfortunate that only 6% of the people really will see your post if you're using a business page or organization page. And yeah, I find that maybe over time it could actually kill off the pages, not Facebook, the personal account, because I still get engagement there and people can actually follow you there. You can make your posts public and have people follow you. So I think if you're a photographer, make sure that people can follow you publicly. Make sure also you make note of which posts are for private viewing, within your circle, and which ones you're putting out to the public. But if you allow, enough public posts and people actually go to your page and see, oh wow, she is sharing a whole bunch of great information. I don't actually have to like them or be my friend or ask them to be my friend. I can just follow them and get the great information. That may be a good alternative to an actual organization page.
Mm-hmm. Is there a way, we're getting a lot of questions in regards to how do I target a certain type of customer? So I'm a photographer and I want to hit up photo editors from news magazines. I'm a government contractor. I want to hit up the defense industry. Is there really a way to do that?
Yeah, there is. The thing is though, photographers tend to talk about photography, and say let's use Twitter as an example because that's a really good example. If you talk about photography, you're going to get photographers following you because Twitter honestly is very keyword intensive. And so if, for example, you want architectural or architects to follow you, you need to talk about architecture. You need to talk about the things that people are interested in that you wish to attract and be a part of that conversation related to their interests. So if you're looking for editors, well then, maybe you're looking for photo editors. Well then talk about photo editing and what makes a great image in that way. Have that conversation, become a resource for that. If you're just showing, oh, this is my photography and this is my photography, no, that's not going to capture the people you are, looking for. Just like when you follow somebody, you're usually following them because they're talking about something you are interested in. And so the same thing is happening to your followers. So again, if you're just talking about me, and maybe some people will come along and see, oh wow, what wonderful work. Yeah, I do want to follow this person. That can happen, but that won't necessarily be the person that you're trying to attract.
Some questions about the pros and cons to Facebook here in regards to their terms and conditions and image protection. One of the first questions we got was concerned copyright and concerns about people stealing your images when you put them in social media.
Well, as far as people stealing your images, we live in a world that's going to happen. You can't stop people from stealing your images, including on your own website. Look at what Getty just did. They said, well, we can't stop people. And this is a big company, not an individual photographer. This is a big company. And they just said, we can't stop people from stealing. So, okay, all 35 million images are now free. Thank you very much. So you can't stop it. So if you want your image to go nowhere, leave it on your hard drive. Your website, social media, whatever it may be. The best thing you can possibly do if you're worried about that is, of course, make sure you have a watermark on there and let people advertise for you. That's what I do. Often will have my website on there and of course, the copyright symbol. And yes, people can do things to cut off, but when people are actually changing the image around, you actually have a better case than if they didn't. So, if you're worried about it, absolutely, there's a true worry. There's certain photographs that I've taken. For example, some of the photographs I took today, you will not see any of them online because my client would have a cow if they got away from me. So those are the kinds of images that you will never see, and it's unfortunate. They're pretty cool, but I know better to allow that opportunity. And so you just have to weigh it. Which images are you willing to lose control over in the name of getting your name out there and letting people see your style and hopefully developing a following based on that?
I want to go back to what you were saying in regards to targeting, for example, photo buyers or art directors. So you're suggesting if I'm a photographer, maybe what I want to do is come up with 10 best photo editors in magazines. And maybe that leads to a blog post, and maybe that's something that photo editors would be interested in, and maybe that's something that I pay to promote.
You could do something like that. Obviously, photo editors anybody likes to see their name. That's one way to do it. Is part of a process, but of course, just being that good resource. What resources do photo editors need? And being the resource for them. And you don't always have to be promoting who you are, but they can certainly, in the conversation, be the fact that you are a photographer, and as more photo editors know you are the resource because you're really offering great. What is that resource? I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
You have to discover what that is. Maybe you need to talk to some photo editors, say what's not out there for you. One of my favorite examples, I often use this in my talks when I'm on the road, is I had this guy come up to me and he's like, I'm really into SEO and AdWords and all that, but this social media thing, I don't get it. And so long story short, ultimately he's like, I'm like, well, what do you sell? Because he kept coming back to me, kept going back to the social media. It's just not right for me. And he said, well, I sell pianos. All right, so why wouldn't social media be helpful for you? He said, well, because the people that buy pianos from me really I don't think use social media. They don't have a resource there. It's like, who are they? Well, piano teachers. And there's no resource for them online, so they really don't use social media.
Mm-hmm.
You hear the big light bulb? I mean, it's obvious.
Right.
Then become that resource online for piano teachers. And it's the same thing I'm saying with photo editors. What is it? It's not, and generally it's not showing your portfolio on a daily basis.
I guess part of the challenge, and we can see it as a creative challenge, is there's nothing that you or I or anyone is going to say that's automatically going to lead to this ginormous increase in business. There's a lot of experimentation that you got to kind of figure out on your own to see what works for your business, is what you're saying.
Absolutely. The thing is, this is all mushing together. As I mentioned before, search engine optimization, I get a ton of my work through Google, a ton of work through Google. And a big part of that is being involved. Here it is. This is what everybody has come for, and not everybody's going to appreciate this answer. But what is the big secret to social media? And what is the big secret to SEO? It's one word: activity. Being active. If you're active in social media, if you're active online, the more you do, the more active you are, the more rewards you will get. Bottom line. And so and obviously quality activity, you can certainly put the word quality in there, but sometimes it is just activity, being out there, engaging people, putting tweets out there, being on Facebook, being on Google+, doing what you need to do to be involved in the community and being that resource. And the more you do, the more active you are, the more stuff, the more content you put out there, the more stuff you produce, the more channels you're involved with, over time, the more, the better your results. And sometimes that's just too much for some people.
Yeah.
Okay.
So much has changed on Twitter in the past year. The introduction of what they're calling Twitter cards, the introduction of inline photo and now video. What are your thoughts on Twitter as a platform?
Well, I think it's an awesome media stream. As I mentioned, I built my career on that. I mean, really, my book deals have come through the development of relationships on Twitter. Some of my, speaking engagements certainly have come through Twitter. And because of that, I wouldn't say I've gotten a lot of photo work, though, specifically from Twitter, but at the same time, that hasn't been my target. So I can't really, I do know people who have done actually pretty well, especially on the wedding side with Twitter, but that's because they're becoming a resource in that area. I become more of a resource for photographers in social media. That was my combination, and I often talk about the combination code, and that's my combination. And so I think, the Twitter cards, I think those are really interesting because the whole idea, of course, there is to capture information. Because here's the thing. You don't own your Facebook account or Twitter account. And the more you can do to capture people's information offline, the better off you are. So I like the concept. And I'm going to step back and say I've not played with Twitter cards very much. I do understand the concept, and I know what's going on there. And certainly, I think it's a good idea. How to approach it, I'm not going to offer an opinion on that right now, just because until I've really, gotten into my fingers dirty in it, I don't want to lead people astray. But the concept of being able to get people's information and that you can own, that's important. And I think that's a good thing and a good direction.
I'm assuming you're going to say, if I tweet out something like, check out this new photo I shot, that on a scale from 1 to 10, that's not going to rank very high in your tweet kingdom.
No. It is about headlines, though. Learn how to write good headlines. Because if you said, here's my new photo that I just took, okay, great. But I've said, if I tweeted out, hey, have you ever seen a horse like this? Hey, have you ever seen this car? Have you ever? Make it a statement that's going to get people's interest. don't just say, here it is. Think of a headline. And there are a lot of places you can look for headlines. Go to the local grocery store and look at the rack. There's a whole, the experts right there in front of you showing you how to create headlines. And sometimes it's those lists. People love lists. We still click on them, and I think it's because we know what we're getting into. Oh, only 7 things. Okay, I can handle that.
Right.
Oh, 100 things. Well, I'll save that for later. But that looks interesting. What a great resource. And we keep going back to them. But so yeah, absolutely. But it's okay once in a while to show your work. Remember, we're photographers. People love photography, and so they're more willing to share. We're lucky. We're not insurance salesmen here, so we have actually an interesting career and interesting stuff to share. So you can get away with sharing your stuff a little bit more than maybe the non-creative person.
Do you think we should sort of adopt these Upworthy type headlines like I went to the beach to photograph some fish, you won't believe what I saw next? Or is that too leading and annoying?
Well, if you can do it well, I honestly don't have an issue with it because it works. Just going back to the the top 10 list. My God, how many of those are out there? When are we ever going to tire of them? But we don't. And it's the same thing with the Upworthy headlines. They work. That's so. Do you want every single tweet to be that or every Facebook post? No, absolutely not. But why not learn from the experts? Learn what's working. So if you really do have a blog post that's really good, that's going to maybe highlight some of your work, but also share quality information with your target audience, maybe throw in one of those types of headlines and see how it works. Test it out.
If you're like many people out there and you're not on a specific platform, like you're not on Twitter or you haven't set up a Facebook page yet, what is the approach to getting to your first 100 followers or your first 1,000 followers? Do you have to start following other people and hope they follow you back, or have a party?
Well, I would personally, I would say, again, going back to the secret activity. As more active you are, of course, your Onion article that was great. 10,000 tweets and 15 followers. But I'm going to say, if you have 10,000 tweets and they're relevant to a certain group of people, you're going to have more than 15 followers. If you often look, you will see that the followers are often in line with the tweets, unless someone's using a robot or something that kind of more like the 10,000 followers and 5 tweets. That stuff. That's just a robot, and it's all basically a bunch of robots following him back. So it's not doing them any good. Yeah. But if you really are engaged and active, you will often see about the equivalent. So I find that if someone has 5,000 tweets, they'll probably have at least 2,000 to 3,000, 4,000 followers.
Yeah. And do you think that when you're starting out, that sort of engagement factor, having a conversation with someone, is a good way to get them to follow you back?
Yeah, absolutely. The engagement. Here's the thing. Everybody's favorite subject is themselves, and if you can be out there championing other people, that's going to go a long way. You love people that think you're great. You think they're awesome. They're brilliant, obviously. So if you can be that person and go to think of it this way, here's a area that I think people are missing out on a lot, and that's blog comments. People put their blood, sweat, and tears into these blog posts, and nobody comments anymore. Why? Because their form of sharing is now on Facebook, is now on Twitter. Yeah. I did like it. I love your post. I shared it on Twitter. I didn't comment, but that was my sharing. So if you really want to get to know somebody, take the time and blog and have that conversation there on their blog. Especially if there's someone you feel you want to know, or somebody who could refer you or could help you in your industry, develop that. But even on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, keep your name in front of them. It's a passive way to continuously keep your name in front of people. You notice people who are noticing you.
Hashtags kind of started on Twitter. They became kind of this ironic comedy device about a year ago. And I think they're still kind of mysterious to people. Can you kind of explain the utility of hashtags on Twitter and Facebook and Google Plus?
When we first started, and I remember when we first started using hashtags, it was really, we were using them very similar to the way we were using before. We would have like tweet ups and groups that would come together, and we'd come together with a hashtag, meaning a keyword, really. But over time, Twitter and Facebook and Instagram made those things clickable. So you can click on that hashtag instead of using a hashtag to put it in search and find everybody with that hashtag. You can just click on it and it'll directly go to everybody who has used that hashtag. So you can now look at a bunch of tweets or Facebook posts that are totally related to that specific conversation or that theme. And so you can help organize. So you can have a party or a seminar and use a hashtag, or a group chat and use a hashtag. And that will hopefully, if enough people see that hashtag, say, wow, there's a lot of good information going on here, and I keep seeing this hashtag, I'm going to click on it and join that conversation. So it's a good way to find information. It's a good keyword methodology of doing that.
And do you think it makes sense to have multiple keywords? I guess I'm kind of thinking of search engine optimization, where when the term is too broad, you really have no chance of being found. But if the term is niche-y enough, if you will, that or a brand term, you have a better chance of being found.
Yeah, I would agree. I think simplicity always wins. It's always going to, things that people can remember. Now, obviously, the clickable portion of that hashtag makes it easier. People can just click on that hashtag, but obviously, and they'll have to take the step to save it or remember it. But yeah, it's, if you can keep it catchy, easy to remember, that's a good way to do it. But certainly search that hashtag idea first. It's easy enough. Just go into Twitter search and search for that hashtag and make sure no one else is using it for something else.
Yeah.
It's not, a hashtag is not going to make or break any campaign, in my opinion. But I do find it as a nice convenient factor for those who do enjoy using them.
But if I'm a wedding photographer, not a bad idea necessarily to have hashtag wedding photography or hashtag underwater photography or something related to, yeah.
But at the same time, you can do that, but here's what you're going to find. If you put hashtag underwater photography, you're going to get a bunch of people who are interested in shooting underwater photography. So, going back to that whole idea of who is your target and who are you supporting and trying to support. And photographers, we often do that. We just put photography, hashtag photography or togs or whatever it may be. That, then again, other photographers tend to follow us, which is fine if that's what you want to do. But you should probably come up with something as part of your target, audience and help them understand what that, make it easy for architects to understand, and maybe instead of photography, more architecture or something like that. There's so many different directions you could go, but just keep in mind your target audience is really what I'm going.
We used to talk about a ratio between self-promotion posts or tweets and kind of general interest things that talk about the industry. And we used to say, a year or two ago, that you want to have something like 9 posts of general interest and 1 post of self-promotion. Do you think that equation has changed?
No, I think, that's kind of the signal to noise conversation, have 10 tweets of other people's stuff and 1 of your own, or 5 to 1. Kind of figure out what I think photographers can get away with, 5 to 1, even 3 to 1, really. But make sure you're promoting other people's stuff. Make sure you're out there sharing stuff, and then once in a while slip your thing in that's relevant. I still believe in that signal to noise ratio. You'll have to decide what is right for you, but I still think it's important. Yes.
So hashtags, and then you have this concept of tagging, which exists basically in all social media platforms as well. So instead of using the hashtag, you might use the @ and Instagram has a tagging mechanism and Facebook has a tagging mechanism. Do you think that that's a viable way to get people to notice you? And how do you feel about people who tag people who aren't in the image or aren't part of the scene as just a way to get them to notice?
Yeah, I've unfriended a few people who've done that to me. I don't unfriend many people, but those are the people that, the people who kept putting stuff up that had nothing of relevance to me or anything to me. They just wanted to get my attention. I think that's a poor practice, and you're going to probably make a lot of people mad. because when you see that someone tagged you, oh boy, wonderful, what did I do? What's going on? And then there it is, it's a picture of scenery that you don't even know where it is or what. I mean,
Right.
maybe if you've talked about, I love Montana, I like going out to Montana, family in Montana, and someone who knows me may tag me of a nice picture that they took in Montana. Okay, that's fine. It's something I'm going to find of interest. But, on a regular basis, there's some people who do it like literally daily. And I just had to put a big squish on that. So no, don't do that. Don't make people upset. I mean, would you like that? Probably not. And that's always a good question to ask. Would you like that to be done to you?
When you talk about, developing a plan for social media, I guess it's easy to be seduced by the thought of creating a piece of content that goes viral. Is this sort of akin to like winning the lottery? Should we think about content creation in that way, or should we just keep our head down and do what we know how to do?
Good question. If you create good content that goes viral, it will help you. But keep on the idea that you just want to be consistent with your content creation. Just be consistent. More than, don't worry about the viral. I mean, once in a while you'll get one that hits, and once in a while I do, but that's not the reason behind it. I'm trying to be a resource, and sometimes the viral stuff is a little gimmicky, but again, you just need to balance it out. I think that, well, I guess I would just go back to it. Keep it consistent. Think about, we're talking about time here and workflow with this slide. How much time is often a question people ask me. How much time, this social media thing, it's that's just such a time suck. And I kind of go back to the networking thing. You take an hour or two out of your day to go to a networking event or something like that. This is time versus money. And so you do need to take time. Again, as I said, you need to be consistent. But I don't care, again, how much time. Maybe it's a half hour, maybe it's an hour. As long as you're consistent with what you're doing on a regular basis. A good example of that is if you went to a blog and you saw that the last post was, July of 2013. You may not follow that post or that blog. But if you saw that there was a post on July 15th and August 15th and September, and you could see all the way through, January, February, and March 15th, you know that April 15th something else is going to be coming. So you don't want to miss it. It's not every day, so you want to make sure you don't miss it, so you're going to subscribe. So that consistency really is helpful in developing that flow. Don't overdo it. That's why I say in the solar system, start with one or two. A lot of times people say, oh, I'm jumping in. I'm going to open up Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and LinkedIn and all that. I'm going to write a blog post a day, and here we go. And after 2 weeks, they're totally worn out and don't know what to do with themselves. Right. So start slow, build your way up, be consistent, and use some of those tools such as a Hootsuite. You can, even your blog posts. I mean, sometimes on a Sunday afternoon, I'll write 2 or 3 blog posts and I'll schedule them. I will do that for a lot of my portfolio sites because I'm always trying to share more information about my work there. So I'll schedule them out. So, when I have time, I can do it. But then again, beware of that automation thing. Make sure you're there for people when those things hit your channel.
This concept of ROI, or return on investment, how do you advise people to measure ROI in all of their social media activity?
That's a good question, and it's a tough one. Here's the bottom line. Most people don't convert in social media. But it's really a very, very small number convert, but it's kind of like public relations. They may not convert there, but they've heard of you there. Yeah. And within that social media, you've developed that trust, you've developed that expertise, and people know you. And so when they're out there and they've heard of you now, you're a name in their mind, and now they see an ad and they're ready to buy, or they see your name somewhere else. Or they search, a specific type of photographer, and your name pops up. It's like, yeah, I know that name. And you can often get, you may be the third out of the 5 on the results, but they know your name. They're apt to probably click your name before those other. So it's public relations. Social media is the public relations of the internet. And so that's what you're developing. You're developing the name, you're developing the trust, and it certainly is. All I can say, it's helped me in many ways. And again, this is all connected into SEO and being found, and I think it's a really important part of it. But don't expect this direct eye for an eye kind of thing. Every tweet I get a lead, or every 10 tweets I get a lead. It's just not going to work that way.
I should probably reinforce that as well, because as many people on the broadcast know, PhotoShelter spends a lot of time developing educational content, and many more people download the educational content than sign up to be our customer. But as you said, it leads to sort of general awareness of the brand, and then people ask you to come and speak, and then you're exposed to a new audience, et cetera. So I guess that is a great way to sort of think about the value of social media and being out there and generating interesting content that attracts an audience.
Absolutely. But that's, again, where the website, you have a call to action on the website. And when people, they hear about you, like you guys, you're right. You do great educational stuff, and people are talking about PhotoShelter all the time. Hey, there's something new coming out, and they do talk about it. It has worked very well for you. But when they come to the website, there's a call to action, and you're asking for their business. And after reading all this stuff and this great information, they know that you care about them, because you're offering all this great information to them. And so they're more apt to convert than if they've never seen your website before at all, don't know the name, there's no conversation, other people aren't talking about you. It would be a much harder sell.
Yeah. Well, I certainly think if you're enjoying this webinar, you should sign up with PhotoShelter immediately after this webinar, and and sign up for Rosh's podcast. So here we go on sort of the last slide in the last 10 minutes. So I've heard everything you said. I understand that there's value in social media. Now what? What do I do? How do I get started?
Start. Don't think about too much other than put that little plan together. Draw a few circles on a piece of paper. Decide where you want to go. Decide what it is you're using social media for, and then develop that. These are the actions I'm going to take. If you're networking, network. If you're listening, listen. I mean, social media, as we mentioned before, is a great place to just listen and find some of the best information about just about everything. And that can help your business right there. Just that little bit of information. Maybe it's a new photographic technique or a style that's developing. You're starting to see the trend on social media, and you can get in early enough. There's a lot of trends I've seen in photography that I was following 6 months a year. Maybe you can, seen the same thing, Alan, where you've seen this, this trend developing, and you figure, okay, it's been a year. This thing's just going to die out. Well, after a year, everybody's just discovering it. Now it's really taken off.
Yeah.
And because we were following it in social media, we were actually there early, and it just seemed like, oh, this is over. But no. So you can actually get in on stuff and be ahead of the curve by being involved in social media too. So that can help you build your business. And of course, the generating new leads, of course, that's the building your trust, building that name out there. And then when people do find you, again, through the search engines or from an ad or email marketing, that trust is there, and they're more apt to actually convert. So in a way, social media makes your other marketing a little bit easier.
The one thing that we've sort of found as well, and talking about having a blog as one of your inner planets and still having value in that content, we have stuff that we wrote 2, 3, 4 years ago that for whatever reason are, we call it evergreen content. It's always green, and people are always interested in it. And it's something that you can always retweet again, because there's always more people that haven't seen it than have seen it. It seems like a good strategy.
Yeah. You bring up actually an excellent point. Don't be afraid to share your old content. I do that all the time. Some of it will fade away, but like you said, it's evergreen. Some of it was still relevant today. You wrote it 2 years ago, a year ago. Share it again, especially if you have a bunch of new followers. It's brand new to them. I've had the same thing go viral a couple times, because there's just a new audience that gravitated to it. So, yeah. But actually, taking a step back here, the point of where you're supposed to start, where you should start. Again, it is that activity. Test the waters, develop that plan, create that calendar. I think a calendar is a great way to go, so you're not reinventing the wheel every month or every few days. You know what you're supposed to be doing, instead of saying, oh, I didn't write a blog post this week. Well, what do I do? And then you never write another one again. Instead, just say, I didn't write one last week, but I have one to do next week. I'll just do the one I have set up, scheduled for next week. That it helps you not fall into that trap. And of course, see your results. Make sure you have Google Analytics. Make sure that you're actually looking at your analytics and looking and seeing. They have a lot of new tools in there that show you the different social platforms that are working. Make sure you have calls to action related to your social media, downloads.
Can you explain that concept a little bit more? This idea of what's a call to action for a photographer?
Absolutely, good question. A call to action, your goal is to convert, and a conversion can be anything you want. It could be for someone to fill out a form. It could be to call you. It could be to email you for more information, to download a free gift, whatever it may be, and then you can use that information later. So a call to action is literally asking. It's amazing how often we don't ask for the sale. And whether you're in person or on your website, sometimes people actually just need permission to contact you, or an easy way to go about it. So you want to really create, even in social media, that sales funnel. You really want to understand, where you're getting the people and bringing them through the funnel all the way to the point of a conversion. It may not be a high level of conversions through social media, but you should still give people the opportunity. And so, again, using the Solar system, they saw something on Facebook that led them to your blog, and then they're like, wow, that's really interesting. On your blog, it says, click here to see my portfolio. You click there, and on the website, say, hey, call me if you need some work, or download my newsletter, put your email in, whatever it may be, but you're asking for something, so you can continue to either follow up with them or market to those people, or again, just get the job.
So that could be sign up for my newsletter, that could be subscribe to my podcast or to my blog, or it could be buy my photo.
Yeah, it could be anything like that. Yeah, especially you've seen a lot of us, have stock. Obviously, even on PhotoShelter, you have stock. You want to sell stuff, so you can set things up in ways to, but make sure people understand that it's okay. It's okay to buy from you. You welcome their business. And I find that a lot of photographers, a lot of business people in general, make it tough to do business with them. They have too many hoops. They don't give people that permission to do business with them, so they feel like, well, I don't know what to do next, so I'm going to go on to somebody else.
This last bullet point of adjusting your plan based on your results and staying flexible, how long do I need to run I guess I'll call it a campaign for lack of a better word, but if I get on Twitter and I'm committed to it, should I give it 3 months, 6 months before I say, hey, this isn't really working?
For me, or
yeah, if you're really just trying to dabble and get a sense of what's going on, 3 months is a reasonable time. I like to look at campaigns as a year-long project and don't give up. I have a whole rant on AdWords and ads that you actually do. You really need to have a plan and stick with it for the year. Because things are really just ramping up after 3 months. So, but you can make a judgment call after 3 months. Do you think you're heading in the right direction, or do you need to make an adjustment at that point in time? But definitely give it a quarter to do that. 6 months, a year, much, much better. But we have our gut feeling, and we sometimes we know we're not getting the results we're looking for. We're not finding the people, or you're just not good at it. It's just not your thing. And maybe it's a little bit easier to share an image on Instagram than it is for you to share information on Twitter.
And that's okay if you can attract an audience on Instagram and figure out a way to engage them. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, some people are doing a great job with it. Some people are not. And each platform offers you something different. I mean, LinkedIn is such a powerful platform. I love LinkedIn. I mean, just to think, 15 years ago, if I came to you and said, hey, I have this program that if you just type in the company name, it'll show you everybody that works there that's connected to my system. Not only that, it'll show you who you know or who your friends know that knows the people you want to know.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't know who all your friends know. So if you could see that and then say, hey, better than a cold call, I can just ask my friend who does know that person, would you refer me? Would you pass on my information? Would you endorse me and give me the opportunity to, knock down that barrier and actually talk to the person and maybe have some coffee or something? That power is huge. And so these are things that you can do in social media. You can connect with people, whether on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, wherever it may be, that you could not connect with 10 years ago without spending a lot of money.
I can't believe how quickly the hour went by. So much great information. Rosh Sillars, you can follow him on Twitter at Rosh Sillars. You can go to his website, roshsillars.com, and subscribe to his marketing podcast. He's done over 200 of them already. Alternately, if you're in iTunes, hit the podcast button there, the link, and search for photography marketing. He's number one for that. PhotoShelter, we also have a podcast there, so you can search for PhotoShelter. But Rosh, thank you so much for all of this great information. We should do this more often. There's so much going on with this stuff.
Absolutely. It's always an honor to talk with you guys and be a part of the educational part of PhotoShelter. I love it. You guys are doing a great job, and I'm honored that you asked me on today.
Our next webinar is next Tuesday, April 8th at 4 p.m., along with the American Society of Picture Professionals. Registration opens on April 1st, so go to our blog.photoshelter.com to get more details on that. But thank you for joining us, to all of you in Internet land, and we'll see you on the next broadcast. Have a great day. Bye-bye.